Thank you. King Jesus, your majesty, sir, we salute you tonight. We honor you as the King of all kings and the Lord of all lords. The Lamb who took away the sins of the world and the Lion of the tribe of Judah. We bless you. Amen. Okay. Greetings in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. First of all, I just want to give the Lord all the glory and the honor. It's an exciting privilege to be here with you tonight, just to really share a bit more, about what God is doing in the nations, in Israel, this move, the glory, and other things. So tonight is not really a teaching time, or more like an open sharing, and then we'll open up the floor for questions. So that's the whole, I think that's a good purpose tonight to, if you have any questions, no matter how difficult, don't be afraid to ask. So that's what this time, because I think if we are clear about what's ahead and what God is doing, then it's easy to participate and be part of whatever God is doing, not only in our nations, in the Pacific region that we all belong to, but also in Israel, as the center of the world, as we all know. The role of Israel as the firstborn of God is very, very clear in the scriptures. But before I move on to that, first of all, secondly, I want to really thank Pastor Nu'u and your team and all the leaders, the mothers, the fathers, the young people that came to represent Samoa last year at the Welcome the King of Glory in Jerusalem. That was a really powerful time. Even after nearly a year since the event, we're still in awe and shock, trying to make sense of it all. It was just a bit too much for some of us. But I'm sure in years to come, the theologians will write their own theology of it, because that's what theologians do. But that's normally what happens. Those who are obedient to the Lord and are hungry, they'll just keep on going, following the Lord, no matter what. And whenever the Lord reveals anything new, there's always controversy, understandably so. But I think we just have to keep our heart pure and continue to obey the Lord in whatever He gives you and me and every one of us. I think that's a good formula for us all. So I really want to thank the Appear Protestant Church and the leaders, for doing a wonderful job organizing that. Also, Fuimono, Yukubithim did a great job. and all of you guys, and also some of the leaders from other churches, some from Peace Chapel, and many other churches that I don't really know what churches were involved last year, apart from the fact that you had a wonderful team, not only here, but also American Samoa had a team. And overall, there was over 600 from the Pacific alone. So really, we outnumbered everyone last year. And it wasn't really so much a conference about teaching and preaching, although that was there. It was really an honoring conference. It was an event to honor Israel as the firstborn of God. And guess what? That was the first time ever in the history of the human race. Even in the Old Testament, even in the New Testament, even in the church history, that event has never ever happened before. Where the world finally turned up and acknowledged the Messianic Jews, or Israel anyway, as the firstborn of God, and the elder brother in the family. So, I think that's it. So if they are the firstborn, then we in the Pacific are the youngest born. We sort of worked it out according to when we received the gospel. So if we in the Pacific were the last to receive the gospel, that means we are the youngest. And we are not, we have a saying that unless the firstborn take his place at the table, no one knows where to sit. If you remember when Joseph was in charge of Egypt, and the brothers came looking for food. We know the story very well. They didn't know that the second in command in Egypt was their own brother Joseph. But finally in the story, one time they organized to have a meal together, and the brothers were shocked when they came to the table, and they were all seated in the right order. Did you remember that part of the story? if the other brother said, how did this Egyptian know who's the oldest? And it was number 2, 3, 4. But I think that's a prophetic picture for the whole humanity. If Israel is the firstborn, once he takes his position on the table, and then normally it goes around the table, from the second all around to the youngest. So we in the Pacific are the youngest, of course, and very, very thankful to the Lord for that. We are not going to try and take anyone's position. We are the baby of the family and very proud of it. As a matter of fact, if you know that story, go back to the story of Joseph. Finally, the reconciliation of the brothers was because the father, Jacob, was willing to release the baby of the family. He was not willing to release the baby of the family. We all know the rest of the story. With a lot of persuasion from Judah, the fourth born was now taking the role as the firstborn in the family. A very dysfunctional family, if you don't mind me saying that, if you read the Bible. A very dysfunctional family. But God overruled and used the family to fulfill his purpose, not only for Israel, but for the world. But as you know, when finally this young guy, Benjamin, came in, they brought healing to the family, reconciliation to the family. So I think that's one of our roles in the Pacific. Maybe another time we need to do a seminar on that or write a paper on that, because the Lord has already revealed so much about the Pacific. Even if we talk about that tonight, we won't have time to cover that. But it's really sad because our young people today are kind of idolizing things from overseas, especially from America, not realizing that the Pacific has a tremendous calling from God. Powerful calling from God. The Pacific is in the Bible many times, but we'll leave that for another night. Tonight is encouragement for Israel, and also as an update in what God is doing in the Pacific in the region, because we're all connected. And so really, another thing I want to say is that I'm still the current coordinator for the Pacific. The leading prophet, as you know, Reverend Milo, the Solomon Islands, is basically retired now because of his health issues, and also because it's the timing of the Lord. So we, in our meeting in New Caledonia in May, I know Lou and Milo were there, and some of you, they were putting my name forward to lead the whole Pacific, and the Lord said, not your time yet. Continue to serve. Not only that, but if you know the Pacific, if you come to any Pacific meeting, the Melanesians outnumbered us by the thousands. So it's only right that they continue to lead and we continue to serve. And this year is just the beginning for Polynesia. It's not just for the world. This is the time for Polynesia to rise. So as soon as I get back to Auckland tomorrow, I fly to Tahiti to start organizing meetings for the Polynesian family, because Tahiti is the center for the Polynesian family. Already in the physical, if you look at the Polynesian triangle with Hawaii in the north, Aotearoa on the southwest, Rapa Nui Easter Island on the southeast, and if you look at the map, right in the middle of that triangle is Tahiti. So that is where God already preordained for our family to meet. Interestingly, also, this was the first prayer assembly ever in the 30-plus year of this prayer movement in the Pacific, where the leading prophet himself, Milo, stood up in New Caledonia during his first session and just said, just as we went to Israel last year and honored the Jews and Israel as the firstborn of God in the world, we now honor you, Polynesian, as our firstborn, and now we expect you to get up and lead us. So the ball is in our court now, family. The ball is in our court, and we are not even prepared for that. The fire is burning in their hands in Melanesia, because that's where this revelation of the glory, the prayer movement, everything starts from there. Rightly so. Why? Because they were the last to receive the gospel. And according to the Bible, the last shall be first, and the first shall be last. So from Jerusalem to the ends of the earth, they were the last. And of the last of the last, Solomon Islands. Solomon Islands was the last nation to receive the gospel, 1894. Interestingly enough, you might want to say, I shared this a bit on Sunday when I was here. this year marked the 188 years of gospel in Samoa. But actually, the first nation to be discovered by the Europeans really was Solomon Islands by Mendana, 1568. That's 450 years ago. And then the greatest maritime mystery of all time, if you ever want to do research on that, was how the Europeans found Solomon Islands and then lost it for 200 years. Would you believe it? They found it and then went home and reported the Spanish. But then for 200 years, the Europeans went to find this place again, could not find it. And then finally, the gospel came in 1894. So they were the first to be discovered, last to be explored, if you know what I mean. But yeah, it's an interesting place, and that's why the Lord used that place to download from heaven the revelation of the glory in this last move of God. It's not because they're any better than any one of us. You know, we're not better than anyone else. It's all to do with location, where you were born, because God has a prophetic word for every location on earth. That's just the way how God planned it. Don't ask me why. So Jerusalem, look at that little place, you know, in that little strip of land between Africa, Europe, and Asia, this little piece of land. God decided, that will be my land. I will call this my land. And you know the rest of the story. Israel is in that little place. And if you go there now, oh man, many stones and rocks. You wonder, can anything grow in this place? But it's an amazing place. So anyway, there's, from the Pacific point of view, you know, just in case you may be wondering, I've heard some people say, why bother with Israel? And why bother with the Pacific? Well, the simple reason is that we are a family. God created humanity to be a family, and God created every nation. You know, every nation is not just a nation as we know it today. Nation is the Bible comes from the Greek word ethnos, where ethnicity comes from. So the Bible says that God chose boundaries for each nation, seasons for each nation, calling, destiny for each nation, so that they may seek after God. So really for us, there's no nation that lives in isolation. It's ridiculous. I mean, look at Samoa. American Samoa, okay, they might be under America, but I believe one day Samoa will be united again under the sovereignty of God. Maybe with the days when America is no longer a superpower. Because time and history change, and God in the end will restore his own destiny for each nation, whether you like it or not. There's a blueprint in heaven for each nation. And so, who are the Samoans? Okay, maybe Polynesians and the culture started here, but we're not the only Polynesian. We are part of a family. Hawaii, still dominated by America, who took them over illegally. Even though Bill Clinton apologized for that, 100 years later, 1993, America still is not going to budge because he's a big boy with a big gun and lots of money. But the time will come, I'm sure Hawaii will be free. Easter Island under Chile, dominated by Chile. They speak Spanish. One day they will be part of the family. Maori Aotearoa, dominated by the white people. It's okay. It's part of the season. Colonization is history. It's a fact whether you like it or not. God must have allowed it for a reason. We're not here to argue with God, but we need to be part of whatever he's doing. And so those days are coming. No, don't worry, no worries. The Lord's going to rearrange all the boundaries of the earth and put everything right when the time comes. In the meantime, here we are. So we, Polynesia, Samoa, part of the Polynesian family. Even in the Pacific, you have Melanesia, Polynesia, Micronesia. These are the three branches of the same family. In case you don't know, interesting, did you know the latest they found from DNA studies? Polynesian, we have 25 of our DNA is Melanesian. Did you know that? That's the latest. Keep an eye on that. Really interesting. All this DNA, genetic research is turning the world upside down, you know. So somehow maybe when I first sailed into the Pacific, I'm quite sure we came down from that way, in Indonesia, Malaysia. Some people say Taiwan, only God knows. But we carry some of the genes, the DNA of the territory that we pass through. So you're not in isolation as a nation. We are part of a family. whether it's a Polynesian family, Pacific family, or whatever. And now I really like reading the paper yesterday, your Prime Minister finishing his time at Pacific Forum, emphasizing the blue ocean, the blue Pacific. You know, they're now promoting that, you know how in the past we always say, we're the Pacific, we are the biggest region, a third of the surface of the planet Earth, and yet we are very small, very little islands, only what, 26 million or whatever, that's all it is. Yes, but really, if you look at it again, geographically, we are huge. We are the biggest continent in the world, although we're a liquid continent. So I thought, it's a good idea. Blue Pacific, blue ocean, whatever it is. But that's it. And then Israel, of course, well, why do you think we should bother with Israel? We should bother, because Israel is the firstborn in the family. You know, and whether you like it or not, we are part of that family. Created us, humanity, to be part of the same family. So it's important that we need to look to the Lord, to His own design, destiny, purposes, whatever. You know, the blueprint was from God. And even though Adam and Eve made a mess of things, the Lord will put things right. We all know that. In the Bible, everything will be put right. Probably even better than before. And so we cannot just think in isolation, me and my little church, or me and my little nation. You need to break your head out of the box and have a look around. And who are your family in this part of the world? Start working with them. And I think it's the same thing in the church. We've been divided for so long by denominations. I think denomination days are gone as far as I'm concerned. But don't worry about me. If you ask the young people today, they are not even, denomination doesn't mean anything to them. So, you know, we need to start having a kingdom mindset, I think, that will really bind us together. Look for your real brothers and real sisters, because you might depend on them someday. And I really believe, you know, the times of separation is already starting. I know the Lord learned so many things from Jerusalem last year. And I know also that's another word the Lord given. It's a time of separation. Separating the true church from the false church. You know, and so on and so on. Okay, so, yeah. Okay, well, what did, I'm just looking at my list. Update then. So an update then, just a quick update. As you already know so far, the Messianic Jews, as you know, they are, Messianic is just another word for Christian. You know, our word Christian comes from Christos, the Hebrew, but really from the Greek, but from the Hebrew is Hamashiach, where we get Messiah from. So it doesn't really matter if you call yourself Christians or Messianic, you're exactly the same thing. So for Jews who call themselves Messianic, that's just their way they've chosen that basically because they've been persecuted by Christians for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, to the point where they feel comfortable with it. So the population of the believers in Israel is less than 1%, which is a drop in the bucket. But I believe the Lord is desperate to move to fulfill His purpose in the last days. And the Lord, according to the Lord, it's time, and it's enough for them to get going, to bring a new season into, not only for Israel, but for the whole world. So, for a Messianic Jew, you already know that, I don't have to share. You've got Avi here, Mishiraki and his family. You've got Papa Benjamin, you already met. Guy Cohen is a pastor from Akko, right in the north, near the border with Lebanon. He wants to come here to Samoa. Samoa is very favorite. I don't know why they like Samoa. So, but you know what? I deliberately stopped him from coming here in November because many other Pacific nations want to turn. So you can't have all of them all the time when everyone else out there are waiting for their turn. So we have diverted Guy Cohen from Australia, Melbourne, Brisbane, Solomon Island, Vanuatu, Auckland, and then he goes back. So that's, and I'm sure next year you'll get a few more Messianic leaders come your way. But that's how it is. So for some reason, they really love to come to Samoa. I don't know whether it's The Rock in the movies or I don't know why they want to come to this place. Anyway, only God knows. But look how blessed you are, right? You guys have been really blessed by having this. Even Benjamin, you know, we had Benjamin only for one day in Auckland. You won't believe, what God did there, just one day. And we had many Messianic leaders come through Auckland and Australia, New Zealand. They had a lot. Many come there. But even a lot of the Kiwis came up to me and said, man, this is the best Messianic leader we've had. He carries the manna and the anointing of a father. Benjamin, he doesn't shout. He just stands here and speaks like a daddy to the children. And very prophetic as well. So, but anyway, I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. But I'm just saying, you guys are blessed. We've only been to Israel last year in October, and you've got 2 Messianic families coming through, with many more who want to come. So anyway, praise the Lord. Okay, so we have a meeting, we have a Pacific Rise, which is basically a Pacific gathering every year, somewhere. This year we chose New Caledonia. The reason being is that New Caledonia will have their referendum on the 4th of November this year to be independent of France. Please remember them in your prayer. Look who you are. Okay, you might not have a lot of money like Bango, but hey, we're free in Apia. You know what I mean? Whereas some of these islands, they're still under colonial rule. And you have no idea how bad that is. Just go and find out for yourself. But some of the stories is pretty ugly. Violence involving death, military invasion. You wouldn't believe. France don't necessarily tell you what they do in their backyard. You want to run a little protest, they send in the paramilitary. So that's France for you. Then I heard rumors that France are willing to let go of New Caledonia, but this is what France said, but we will never let go of French Polynesia. Why? They consider French Polynesia to be the jewel in their crown. Whatever they say, when I say, God, what do you say of French Polynesia? It belongs to you. It's part of my family. And if that's a center for our family, we need to get serious and pray for God to fulfill His calling there. Tahiti is probably the worst country in the Pacific regarding being born again. The enemy knows there's something special about that place. And I tell you what, the number of born again believers there, they're very small. And if you give your life to the Lord, you'll be under attack. If you last 6 months, you're doing really well. We always say French Polynesia is the Japan of the Pacific. You know what Japan is like? Japan is the hardest place to crack with the gospel in Asia. Who's the famous leader from South Korea? Bo Yong-Ki-jo. You know him? You know what he said? Bo Yong-Ki-jo said, man, I can preach the same message in South Korea and thousands will give their life to the Lord. I would fly over the channel to Japan and preach the same message and not even a single person would give their life to the Lord. Why is that? Spiritual warfare. Spiritual opposition. That land is drenched with blood. So, that's another story. Leave that, there's nothing to do with us. That's Asia. In the Pacific, French Polynesia is like that. I've had the privilege to visit there many times. It is, sometimes you can feel it, The enemy knows, and not mind you probably already know, if you put a spear through Jerusalem, right through the center of the world, where will it pop up? It's not Wellington in New Zealand, not even Samoa, it's in French Polynesia. It's in the south, the southern islands. They call it Australis in French, but normally the name in Tahiti, Tuhapai. That's the name of those group of islands down there. And very close, it's not even a land, it's in the middle of the ocean. That spot is in the middle of the ocean. It'd be nice one day to take a boat and go and pray in that place, but that's it. So Tahiti, or French Polynesia and Jerusalem, I kind of hold the whole thing together. And so I think the project that we also been praying about that we need to bring through is building houses of worship all around the world. Right now, houses of prayer is very popular, but we want to build the biggest house of worship in Jerusalem, following the design of King David. King David was the first one who started that, 3,000 years ago or something like that. And so we want to do that. I believe that's what the Lord meant when He said in Amos 9:11 that He will restore the fallen tabernacle of David. And so if that's the case, then every nation need to put up the post for this tent of glory, setting up 24/7 houses of worship. And then French Polynesia is where if you put up you know how to put a tent up. You put the thing up, you put the post, and then you tie them, pegs. But French Polynesia is the peg for this global phenomenon, project, whatever you want to call it. So, that's just kind of whet your appetite. It's not just about Samoa, it's about Polynesia, it's about the Pacific, and then how the Pacific links to Israel. Okay, so we had, I've already mentioned how Papa Milo, that was his first message in New Caledonia in May this year, that Polynesia, you are the firstborn, and we need to rise up and lead the family. So the ball is in our court, and God help us, because we need God to help us. What do we do now? Because now the expectation on us to get up and lead the family. Okay, we had Papa Benjamin there. We had another wonderful brother, Chief Kenny Blacksmith from the Cree Nations in Canada. They were the outside in the council. And we've sort of identified, the main topic, or the main topic of discussion, consultation was, what do we do now after Israel last year? After whatever God launched, we all knew was something to do with the glory. What do we do now? Where do we go from here? And so there is a next meeting that we're having to really, formalize something for next into the future, will be in December this year. So I know Pastor Nu and Milo, I think they're planning to be there. Pastor Donald Cruz will come to, from American Samoa. Maybe 1, 2, 3, maybe another 3 maybe of Polynesian leaders, but the majority of the Pacific, we have nearly 20 leaders from the Pacific are Melanesian. So Melanesians are still, they have the numbers. And so we're looking at, forming a network. Well, I don't even know what to call it. People are really afraid of the word organization. As soon as you mention the word organization, no, we don't want to go there. They rather prefer the word organism because it's something that's alive. I think organization brings back the memories of committees and all this, the old way we used to do things. But they want something that's alive, a network, a family, whatever it is. So that's what this meeting would, that's what the meeting in Jerusalem will determine in December. To what we're doing, what are we forming? Name? Do we have a name? The council. Who will be the elders of this council? Global. So we have very key leaders from Africa, America, Asia, but the majority also, we the Pacific will outnumber them all because of the sheer numbers, we've been. And then Benjamin came through and he enjoyed his time in Samoa so much. And then he said, this is what he said, maybe we should just start with Israel and the Pacific. This is Benjamin. And I said, oh, Papa Benjamin, we need to open our hearts for the rest of the family as well. But he said, yeah, but maybe later on, maybe we need to just start with Israel and the Pacific. And the reason was, and still is that I think they never found a region with so much open hearts to Israel. As you know, anti-Semitism, or the hatred of the Jews, is a disease that's, oh my goodness, it's out there. It's a spiritual disease. But I don't know, for some reason, by the grace of the Lord, we in the Pacific don't really have any issues with that. Don't ask me why, I don't know. But we don't really have a history of killing any Jews and running them out of town and confiscating their properties and so on and so on. The other reason was that they said they themselves, meaning Messianic Jews, they have been hitting the tribe. They've been going all over the world. Africa, especially Europe. They've been hitting Europe for 20, 30 years with very much fruit for that work, even among the Christian churches. Whereas when the Pacific came in numbers last year, it just literally blew their minds away. They just didn't know how to cope. And so some of the leaders that came to me, normally at the end of the session, some of you were there in Abu Ghosh in Jerusalem in the last days, some of the leaders would just come to me and hug and cry. Some of them would just come and say, unbelievable, don't know what to say. Some of them were saying, We've been hated all our lives. We don't know how to deal with people like you when you come with genuine love. They just don't know what to do. They didn't know how to handle us. That's literally what was happening. So I'm not saying this to show off. No, we're not here to show off. I'm just telling you what happened. There was really the Lord. Somehow there is anointing over the Pacific that melted the heart of the firstborn and the rest of the family. And maybe I can tell one story. There's an evangelical leader, very well known. I won't mention his name. He's from Germany. He has been part of what they call, I don't know if you know here of this group, Back to Jerusalem too. Meaning, they want to form another council like it was in the book of Acts 15. Remember Acts 15? The first ever council of the church in Acts 15. So these people want to form a council like that for today. And you know what he said? We have been lobbying these Messianic Jews for over 20 years. And then you Pacific people just turned up yesterday, lobby them and open their heart and won their heart. And he said, that's totally unfair. This is this father from Germany complaining to me. He said, why is this going on, Lord? I said, well, I think the Lord has a reason. It's not because we're any better than you, but maybe there is a reason and there is a plan that we need to follow. So, there are many, many stories I can tell. Otherwise, we'll be here all night. Okay. Basically, what actually happened, so far, it's nearly a year since the event last year, Welcome the King of Glory. What do we believe the Lord launched from there? Well, number one, it was truly a move of the glory of the Lord. Two, the revelation of Jesus Christ as the glory of the Father. In a way we don't fully understand. We believe Jesus is now on earth, not physically, in the spiritual realm, as the glory of the Father. This is not the second coming, of course, we all know that. So how do we relate this to the second coming? Well, we need the Lord to help us understand that. Do we have scripture to support that? Plenty. The main one we always quote is Isaiah 60. Arise and shine. This is God commanding Israel. Israel, rise up and shine. Why?